Deputy Prime Minister Uhuru Kenyatta's the National Alliance Party TNA has in the last week hit the headlines for attracting politicians hitherto deemed diehard and loyal supporters of Prime Minister Raila Odinga and the Orange Party. Nominated Member of Parliament Rachel Shebesh is said to be on TNA's want list, and her attendance over TNA allied members of Parliament get-together in Naivasha last weekend all but confirmed that the orange was no longer tasty for her. Tarehe Member of Parliament and Housing Assistant Minister Bishop Margaret Wanjiru is also said to be on TNA's radar, and her capture could be confirmed anytime this week.
Na nimekuja na nimefika nyumbani.
The Orange Party has also lost another female lawmaker, Sotik's Dr. Joyce Laboso, who has traded the orange for the horn after months of being linked to the United Republican Party. The season of political migration is on, and many more politicians are expected to follow suit, even though the Political Parties Act had intended to cure the mischief of defections.
In electoral politics, especially when it's related to succession like now, you naturally do not create consensus by dialoguing with people. You create it by dominating them. And I think Uhuru Kenyatta has done well to dominate the House of Gema, and he has basically made it clear that if you're not with me, you're with the enemy of the House of Gema.
The spirit and the letter of the Political Parties Act at Section 14 seems to be very clear that party hopping and the party indiscipline should be illegal and should be a thing of the past. In other words, you should not be a member of a political party, of one political party, but then advocate the policies and programs of the other political party.
The defecting politicians have cited various reasons for jumping ship, but are they compelling enough?
These people are defecting for reasons that are purely ethnic. It has nothing to do with democracy or the reform project. It's purely a question of survival.
The defecting members, especially those holding parliamentary positions, are riding on grey areas in the law, while one would have expected that those who have cut links with the political parties that sponsored them to parliament would lose their seats. They seem to be insulated by the law.
The fact that Chapter 7 is suspended seems to imply that even if they are deemed by the members of their political parties to have resigned, or ceases to be members of those parties, they can't lose their parliamentary seat because the operations of that chapter is suspended.
What then are the political implications of the defection so far? Would the departure of Bishop Margaret Wanjiru, Rachel Shebesh and Dr. Joyce Laboso substantially injure Prime Minister Raila Odinga's third shot at the presidency?
If the defections that were happening in ODM were from people from other communities, the Kambas are leaving ODM for TNA, for instance, or the Luyas are doing that for TNA, we would worry. But now these are just chicken going back home. And as they say, you can never buy a politician, you can only rent one. In this particular instance, Wanjiru and Shebesh were only rented by Raila Odinga, and the rent has quished. So what do? They just go back to where they came from.
Observers in the electoral process say, while the defecting politicians were free to exercise their democratic right, defections were detrimental to the growth of the country's democracy compared to other established democracies in Africa and beyond the continent.
There is nothing absolutely wrong with defections. There are defections in just about every jurisdiction in the world. But also you will appreciate that established democracies and established political parties, the ANC of South Africa, for example, the CCM of Tanzania here, for example, the New Patriotic Party of Ghana, or the National Democratic Congress of Ghana that has evolved, but it's very strong two-party system. Defections are extremely rare.
But even as the wave of political migration sweeps across the country, there are key election timelines that political parties and politicians aspiring for various elective seats must comply with to be eligible to participate in the March 4th, 2013 polls. All political parties must submit their nomination rules and procedures to the electoral body IEBC at least 3 months to the date of the nominations. This, counting back from March 4th, 2013 polls date, gives political parties up to October 17th this year to comply. Political parties will also be expected to submit their membership list to IEBC 2 months to the general election, that is, by 4th January next year. Political parties are also required by the law to submit to IEBC their lists of candidates for various elective seats, as well as nomination slots, at least 45 days to the election date, that is, by January 18th next year. Political parties keen on entering into pre-election deals must deposit their instruments of alliance with the IEBC at least 3 months before the election date, that is, by 4th December this year. People keen on seeking elective seats as independent candidates should not have been members of any political party at least 6 months before the general election.
But also for members of other parties that have expressed interest in vying using other political parties, must also make up their minds before this deadline actually begins to take effect.
TNA and ODM have dominated the latest wave of defections, entrenching the political hypothesis that the upcoming general election could be a two-horse race, pitting Prime Minister Raila Odinga against his deputy in the coalition government, Uhuru Kenyatta.
One horse in the person of Uhuru Kenyatta has no brakes. The other horse in the person of Raila Odinga has no reverse gear. So both of them are going to the finishing line. So Raila Odinga has to bring in as many people as he can. Uhuru Kenyatta has to look for whoever he can collect and put in his bus in that direction.
Political defections have earned their place in the country's political history since the advent of multi-party politics 2 decades ago.
Politically, defections are like what butter is to bread. If you have a loaf of bread, you must butter it. And the unfortunate thing, and they call this the Murphy's Law, is that each time you butter your slice of bread, it always, if it falls, it always falls with the buttered side to the ground. So essentially then, defections being the butter in our politics, if the bread falls, it can only fall with the buttered side to the ground, meaning that they could be good if the bread doesn't fall.
The political transfer window remains open and political loyalties are expected to shift, setting the stage for the most complex yet competitive electoral exercise in Kenya's history. Francis Gachuri for the Kibaki Succession Series.